Our next guest is a frequent contributor to Legal Face Off, attorney Antonio Romanucci with the law firm of Romanucci and Blandon, talking about some of his current cases.
Tony, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you as always. In the year following a firearm injury, child and adolescent survivors endured significant increases in pain, psychiatric, and substance use disorders compared to their peers. That's according to research published this Monday in the journal Health Affairs. Your client, Keely Roberts, whose son Cooper was a victim in the July 4th, 2022 Highland Park shooting, was quoted in the article discussing this study. How is she doing? How is Cooper doing? And what are your thoughts on the results of this look into the victims of shootings?
Well, thank you very much, Rich. And I think this is a very important topic, not only for the families that have been involved in these shootings, but also for our entire communities, because what we have to realize, these cases just don't affect the person who's been shot, or in this case, we're talking about children. It's not just the child. Really, the suffering impacts the entire family. So when you look at the specific issue which you talked about, what is the year after a shooting like? Well, I can tell you very, very bluntly now, because I represent so many children in different shootings, and Cooper being one of them, that I've seen them through this past year. I've seen them now 15 months, 16 months post-injury, and it's devastating. They don't heal. I mean, they get surgery, the scars might go away, but the physical ailments that transfer over to the psychiatric side, especially when it comes to children, is devastating. I see the changes not only in the child, but also in the entire family.
So, Tony, what's the latest status of that lawsuit involving the Highland Park shooting?
Well, it's a very complex status right now, Christina. What happened is, we filed this lawsuit in state court in Lake County, Illinois, because we pled all state claims against the gun manufacturer, against the gun distributors, against the shooter and his father. And the gun manufacturer, in this case, Smith & Wesson, felt it appropriate to remove the case from state court and send it to federal court. A judge disagreed, and he remanded it back to state court, but now Smith & Wesson is in the process of taking an appeal of that. So we're in this limbo situation where we can't get to what's called at issue on the case yet, because we're not really decided yet where the case is going to remain.
Tony, speaking of the father of the shooter in Highland Park, last week he pled guilty on misdemeanor reckless conduct charges for helping his son get the gun that was involved in that tragedy. What are your thoughts on that development?
Well, I thought it was a monumental development, Rich, because number one, as you know, we made the father a defendant in our lawsuit. And we were grateful that Eric Einhart, who was the state's attorney in Lake County, was able to find a charge or a number of charges that he could bring to trial. And in fact, the father pled guilty to a misdemeanor reckless conduct. So it's this sort of transformational type of litigation and criminal prosecution, which will send the right message, in this case, specifically to parents, that even though your child is an adult, if you vouch for that child in a way in which could or might harm others, you will be held out, you will be held accountable. And that's the type of transformational prosecutions, both on the civil side and on the criminal side, that we need to see continue.
So, Tony, a lot of parallels, unfortunately, to the shooting earlier this year at Old National Bank in Louisville. Where does that stand? And, with respect to the gun manufacturer aspect of the case, do you care to comment on that?
Well, I can comment briefly, Christina. That case has not yet been filed, meaning the complaint hasn't been filed yet, so the lawsuit isn't public. But hopefully we're hoping soon. That case presents its own challenges because the employees or the people who were shot at that time were employees of the bank. So we have to pursue all angles, including whether or not the bank had any responsibility, what sort of remedies may apply. to the people who were shot or not. But what we do know is that the shooter in this case used a gun from a manufacturer called Radical Defense, right? Great name for an AR style rifle. But what's interesting about this gun manufacturer is they manufacture probably the absolute cheapest AR-15 assault style weapon that exists. So if you're a teenager with, a minimum wage job, bagging groceries like I used to when I was a teenager, and as soon as you become an adult and you can lawfully buy a gun or get one illegally, well, you can buy the cheapest one possible from Radical. And that's what happened here. This was the cheapest gun that he could buy, and he used it to cause absolute human destruction.
Thank you to our guest, Antonio Romanucci, with the law firm of Romanucci and Blandon, for joining us on Legal Face Off.